business. So the first deal that we really got involved in, we started building out a short-term rental business. We hired an operator. We installed him in the business. He got training on it. We met weekly. We talked about metrics. We talked about what's going to move the needle. And we were clearly just the investors in the project. And so we scaled it from 0 units to 25 units over a period of 18 months. And that was an opportunity for us to invest in. That was pretty interesting. I like that just because of my profile. The second one that's on this list that probably was the most exciting for me was this thing called land flipping.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. I'm Jason Balin from Hard Money Bankers, co-host Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse. Have a great guest lined up here that we're going to introduce, Russ Morgan, in a second from Wealth Without Wall Street. Definitely talking about and having conversations about topics that I truthfully love talking about, and I know you do as well, Ian. Financial freedom, passive investing, passive income in general. It's definitely a hot topic. If this is your first time tuning into the podcast, welcome. We promise we'll keep this entertaining for you. If you are a return viewer, follower, listener, watcher, thanks again for all the support. We certainly couldn't do it without you. We like to bring in actual, business owners, real estate investors, entrepreneurs that are doing great things, and definitely stuff that you can get a good bit of knowledge out of.
Yeah, no, and I'm definitely excited for this one because Russ is a real person doing real deals, and he shows everybody in the world exactly what he's doing and how to make passive income. So that's exciting for us. But guys, if you get any value out of this, the best compliment we can give Russ is by sharing the show. We don't care about the likes or the subscribes. That's for us. We don't need that. But if we can share the show, get his message out there, that's the best compliment we can give him. And enough about us, and let's bring Russ in.
Russ, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Guys, thanks for having me. It's fun to be on.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. Just so everybody knows, this is a reciprocation podcast because I was able to go on Russ's podcast, Wealth Without Wall Street, and I got more texts from people to say, holy crap, you were on that show. How was it? And I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation because you share a lot of the same core values that we do as investors. So why don't you give us a little background to how you became a quote unquote passive investor and where you're at today?
First, this is a shout out to say that you guys chose me instead of Joey to come on your show. I just want everybody to know that, right? For our group, we give each other grief. So, man, quick background: former financial advisor, certified financial planner. The 2008 crash kind of led me to searching for new ideas. I ended up in a room with 400 or 500 other CPAs and investment advisors. And I heard this 70-something-year-old guy talking about this wild thing called becoming your own banker. I didn't know what that meant. It led me down a whole new rabbit trail of basically leaving all of the investment things that I was personally doing behind. And I started, saving money in this tool called whole life insurance of all things. And the next thing you know, I'm, doing podcasts with guys like you and learning cool strategies of ways that I could deploy that cash. And for like the last 7 or 8 years, Joey and I have been on a mission just to teach other people financial freedom has nothing to do with how much money you have in the bank or any investment account. It's, do you have more passive income than you have monthly expenses? And just trying to help people who want to get there as fast as possible.
So one of the things you just talked about was infinite banking, which Ian and I are very familiar with, and we've been involved in that for the last few years. And I just put together that you're also Nelson Nash is also from Birmingham, Alabama, and he died in 2019. So is that the old guy you're talking about? 10 or so years before his death, that he was the speaker in this group.
Yeah, Jay, that's crazy. I had gone to a conference, this specific conference that Nelson would speak at every year. It was in January, every single year, but it's all over the U.S. And I listened, he'd get up there and he'd say pretty much the same thing. And, it's one of those things when you're a financial genius, everything's going well. It means a rising market. You don't need new ideas. And that's where I was when I had heard him in 2005 all the way through to 2009. But what I didn't know is that Nelson Nash lived in Birmingham, where I am from. And it wasn't until I listened to him, went to his breakout session. I bought his book after his breakout session. It was the last day. I get on a flight later that afternoon, and I'm, taking the 2-hour flight from Orlando to Birmingham. And I read his book cover to cover. And on the back, I turn over the book. He actually had his cell phone number and his address on the book. And I'm like, wait a second, Rocky Ridge Road, Birmingham, Alabama. That's got to be a joke. And so I just made it my mission to seek him out. And he didn't know it at that point, but I'd already deemed him to be my mentor, and he did. We spent a lot of time together over the 10 years, and he was happy about it because he had traveled the U.S. and Canada teaching people this concept, but nobody in Birmingham had adopted it. And so he was grateful to have somebody that was so eager to learn, especially since I had been on the dark side in the investment community. He was ready to evangelize me and help me, unlearn all those bad habits.
Well, I will say that it probably took Ian and I 2 years to read all of his content, and it's pretty damn authentic content, right? Between all his videos and his book. And it wasn't that it just took 2 years to go through the content. It took 2 years to understand it. Like, it just took a while. And after you get it, you get it. Yeah. But like, it wasn't all that easy personally to understand. But thankfully we do, and we're big advocates of it. Do you believe, as an investor in general, that should be, if you have the ability to, step one, to try to funnel everything first through a life insurance policy and then leverage it out in order to invest into deals?
Yeah. So we follow this concept called the right next thing. And it's really, what is the thing that I should be doing next? And it's hard because we listen to podcasts, and it's easy to kind of get this squirrel mentality where I hear, the new shiny object and I go chasing it and assuming that that's the thing I should be doing, but then start to wonder, have I done it in the right order? So the first thing that people should do is understand, where are they going, right? So oftentimes it doesn't matter how fast you're going. If you're going in the wrong direction, you're actually getting further away from the goal. And I think for us, we always want to make sure the strategy and visions align. And then the second step is infinite banking. And it's just because you're going to invest from somewhere. Where is the best place for you to invest? Not only for you to store capital until it's needs to be deployed, but where are you going to put that capital when it comes back, right? If we're building streams of passive income, where is that money going to go to? Where is going to give you the most benefits out of it? And so for us, it's something that's liquid, that's tax efficient, is protected. And, I go back to my investment days. There's nothing that I could put it in better than these contracts. I just didn't understand how to leverage them before then.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you about that keyword leverage here in a second. But yeah, we just had a large distribution come in, and I'm like, all right, money comes in, it's going back. I'm paying off all my loans. I'm literally today, I'm going to fund next year's policies for me and my daughters and my wife. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. And then I still got all these other loans that I took that I put into other investments. And it's like, wow, I'm whole again, but I got this other money over here. And it's like, you start to see the cycle, and I'm excited to teach my kids about it as they get older. I'm excited to, the first book I read was The Banker's Code. And I think that by George Anton does a really good job of saying, hey man, you need assets to provide you cash flow to then cover your liabilities. And how do you continue to recycle that? And I think life insurance policies is a good vehicle there. When you're talking about leveraging your life insurance policy, are you talking about the ability to loan from it, or is there another leverage piece that you like to utilize that everybody should know about?
Yeah, no, I think the first step, if you're learning from this for the first time, it's just going straight to the insurance company and borrowing the money from them, right? They're going to give you a loan, no questions asked other than how much do you want, where do you want us to send it? That's the benefit. As real estate investors in business, whatever you're going to put money in, the next question is, when do I have to pay it back? And what the three of us know is that there's no structure to that repayment. They're not sending us a receipt in the mail saying, hey, you owe this much interest on this much money. Here's your payment next month. We get to pay it back at will. The next piece that most people don't understand about life insurance is that a loan is nothing more than a prepayment of the death benefit. Meaning that if you had $1 million death benefit and you took a $100,000 loan, your death benefit now has gone down to $900,000. That's a huge key because most people buy life insurance for what? Death. The three of us are using it while we're actually living, and we're finding ways to actually not only grow our wealth, but at the same time, we're growing the death benefit. But Joey and I, so I've been doing this for a long time, right? I mentioned 2009 is where I listened to Nelson Nash. it took me another 6 months to unlearn a lot of the things that I had programmed before I bought my first insurance policy. It wasn't until I did the first deal where my wife was a dentist at the time, and she had this huge loan at Bank of America where we paid off that Bank of America loan and had our business start paying back our family $7-8 grand a month, and redirect that to our first experience. Oh, this is what this should look like. But as time has gone on, like at this point in time, Joey and I have over 40 different whole life policies on over 23 different lives. And so that system has grown to a level that we actually start to leverage lines of credit to simplify our process. So we have found ways to make this in our way more efficient and more effective in the way that we do it. But also, I think at the basic level, most people will just go to the insurance company, borrow from them, because that's what I did for so many years.
Yeah, I think this is a good tool, and we've talked about this with a few different people. Transparently, MC over at Cashflow Ninjas, he's our guy, right? Yeah. And he's got a really good understanding, and I think that's the thing. You need a good broker. You guys, whoever it is, whoever you decide to go with, you really need to understand the policy. You brought up a good point of, you said your wife. And we're trying to get to the investment part, right? Because people are like, oh, you're just talking about life insurance again. And we're like, no, this is the coolest tool in the world. Like, I didn't understand it for so long. Now that I understand it, it's the best tool in the world. You said your wife started paying back your family $7-8 grand a month, whatever that magic number was. How did you structure that side? Like, is your policies held by your own, like just in your personal name, or do you have an LLC that then collects, that borrows from it? Like, what's your structure to make sure that all the funds are flowing back through there properly? Me and Jason like to look at it from like we joke about it, but this is truly what it is. We're all small family offices, and that's how we view it. And the more rigidity and the more structure you have behind it, the more serious you take it. So I'm curious to see how you set yours up.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We're all a family office, and if you don't have someone else doing it, you're the CEO and you're the captain, right? At this point, we have a family office that handles all of that. We've gone through all the setting up the trust, and the trust now are owners of these contracts. But that is at an advanced level that for most people don't ever need to get to, right? So I'm not going to give you legal advice, because I am not qualified to give it. When we did that deal, we literally set up a promissory note between her business and us personally, right? We took a loan from the insurance company. We then took that money, we lent it to her business, basically refinanced the debt, just like Wells Fargo to Bank of America, right? It's just a simple transaction. Her business then was deducting that interest expense, and we were picking up the interest income. Now, because we used the insurance company's money, we could actually deduct that investment interest expense from the insurance company against the interest income, right? So we're able to get that money income tax free because we're washing those two loans apart. That's a little piece that a lot of people don't know. I mean, it's one of the things that we do is we want to help people match investments to their deductions and figure out where's the best place. And for those of us who've used lines of credit in any shape or form, whether it's an insurance company or a bank loan, we see that a lot of us carry forward a bunch of investment interest expense. Well, finding investments that have produced investment interest income is a great way to wash it off and become tax-free. So that was how we did that first transaction, and have done a lot ever since.
I think that's a really good point. And I think, Ian, some of the stuff that we've never really chatted about on the show is that exact thing. So let me just state that back kind of as a question to make sure that that's accurate, because that what I'm saying is accurate, because that's a question that a lot of people, that's a very common thing. So the insurance, so you took a loan, the policy was under your personal name?
Yeah.
Okay. And you took, a loan, you took a loan from the policy, right? Let's just call it, let's call you have a cash value of 100 grand. You took 100 grand. Let's just say that. So you got $100,000 on that. Then you had a promissory note with your wife's business entity. So you lent $100,000 to your wife's business entity. That company made monthly payments to you that, they were able to deduct the interest, not the principal, obviously, but the interest. And then on your end, you picked up personal income on the interest. And I'm missing one side because there's a deduction from you personally.
Yeah. So the insurance company, right? They're charging me interest. So now I have that interest expense to offset the income that I'd received.
That's right. On your personal name.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't have to report the growth within inside the insurance company because that is growing inside the insurance contract.
Exactly.
Which is granted all the tax benefits with it.
So you're making money in two places and getting tax advantage, which is an amazing thing. So,
and the money's growing in the policy through compound interest, and the money you're repaying is simple interest.
Exactly.
Yep. Which is a mind-blowing calculation, because I told Jason, I was like, we had someone on talking about that, and I was like, no, I'm pretty sure it's a big delta. And he finally did that conversion. It was a pretty big delta, wasn't it?
For every $100,000, if you're getting the money at 6%, and if the debt's costing you 6%, it's not really debt, but if you're taking the loan at 6% interest, and then you're getting a 6% compound interest, you're making $165,000, and you're only paying, I think it was $100,000 in interest. So you're making that $65,000 delta. That was a 20-year term, if it was a repayment, but it was big. It was more massive than one would think. Because one would think that they just wash, but they don't.
I think that what the three of us have learned is that there's processes, right? The more process oriented we can get, the better we create our system, and the more efficient we make it, the higher the likelihood we're going to have success, right? So when you can systematize anything, you've got a potential for a win.
Yeah, that's right, and that's again, having the end goal in mind that you talked about, having the structure, having the process, having someone there next to you coaching you to say, hey, this is how we're going to get to the end goal, I think is what's important. A lot of people miss that. Your show's called Wealth Without Wall Street. Like, let's talk about that. Obviously, we figured out the vehicle where you've earned active income. You have a vehicle that you want to put it into. For you, instead of a savings account, it's a life insurance policy. How do we get this magic word called passive income? Because everybody thinks it's so easy. I talked about it on your show. I got tons of gray hair, no hair on my head, because my income is still technically active because we're out here grinding out deals. Let's talk about what passive income means to you.
Yeah. So passive income, we've got our brand is passive income. So I wear a passive income shirt almost every other day. I was traveling through the airport the other day, and this older guy behind me said, "What is passive income?" And so my standard response is any income that comes in that you don't actively work for. And now for it to be passive for you means it has to be active for someone else. And it means that sometimes it may be active for you, right? Like you guys have built systems. You guys have gotten to where you've built a business. And my guess is you're either there or close to being there to where if you want to take a year off and go into Europe, your systems would probably continue to work. There's someone probably in place that could continue to management. And that is then passive to some degree, depending on how you want to look at it. So I always tell people that we need to figure out a way to get ourselves into a passive position, but we want to have influence, right? So the influence is the part that reduces our risk. The more we understand about the asset that we're investing in, the more we understand the operators that are, operating the class, we have influence that can help us reduce risk. So we have a tool we call the Investor DNA, which is basically connecting someone's personality, the way God made us, to invest in different asset classes. And we've basically over the last 7 years have interviewed so many different people in so many different asset classes, and we would almost every single time say, tell us who has the most success in this and why, and tell us what your profile is and why is it that you like this, but what is it that you don't like about it. And so we built this whole matrix. So when someone comes in our world and they're trying to get this passive income and they're saying, where do I start? Because there's so many options. And oftentimes that's the hardest thing, is to get from G to O, right? To start actually taking action, is for them to narrow down the path to say, okay, well, my profile is I'm an influencer. I love, being involved in things. Well, if I'm going to look at a syndication, for instance, I'm going to be investing in multifamily or self-storage or whatever, mobile home parks, whatever the thing is. What is it that I'm going to like about it? Well, I'm going to love the fact that it has a lot of variety, right? A lot of opportunities. It's going to be something cool I want to talk about with my friends. But then we'll say, well, what is it that you won't like about it? Well, yeah, I won't necessarily like the lack of involvement. So then how do I get over that hump? Well, maybe it's being a part of a mastermind. Maybe it's getting to connected events with, actual syndicators who are operating these deals, starting to learn about the stuff they're doing, maybe going on some of the, tours they're doing in their projects so that you actually are seeing how they're taking a unit and converting it. How are they actually adding that value? learning what those metrics are. And then they go, oh, well, now I have involvement. I have influence within the people who are running the deal. Cool. Now that becomes a passive opportunity for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Doing your due diligence, getting your background, getting your understanding out of these passive revenue streams. And you guys do a good job of it. Jay, if you could bring it up on the screen, if you still have it, you guys disclose your quote unquote passive income inside your portfolio and where you're earning it from. What, before, I guess Jay might be pulling it up here in a second, but I remember syndications, private lending. I think there was something in there about marketing and a few other things. What's your favorite, I guess, asset class out of what you guys are passively invested into?
Yeah. So my investor DNA says I love business. I love involvement. So anything that I invest in, it doesn't matter what it is, I always look at it. Is it a business? Is it something that I can invest in where it's like we're in a partnership? So if you're looking at our passive income report, just a little background, Joey and I were at an event, 5 or 6 years ago. You mentioned MC. Actually spent some time with him at that event. And I met these two guys that were sharing their personal passive income report on their podcast. Now, they weren't doing investments. They were in the affiliate sponsorship space. But I thought that's super cool. And so that's what inspired us to do that. And we started it back in 2020. But for me, I like looking at business. So the first deal that we really got involved in, we started building out a short-term rental business. We hired an operator. We installed him in the business. He got training on it. We met weekly. We talked about metrics. We talked about what's going to move the needle. And we were clearly just the investors in the project. And so we scaled it from 0 units to 25 units over a period of 18 months. And that was an opportunity for us to invest in. That was pretty interesting. I like that just because of my profile. The second one that's on this list that probably was the most exciting for me was this thing called land flipping. I don't know if you guys have ever had Mark Podolsky, the land geek, on your podcast before. We were interviewing him on our show, and he was telling us about how he's buying these little small tracts of land and turning around and selling them on owner financing terms and creating this reoccurring cash flow. And so we went through his program and we're going to actually install our assistant at the time to do it and to build that business. And she sucked at it, by the way. That was not her profile. She was not a perfect candidate for it. And we were like, man, how do we do this? So the thing that we did is we actually worked with Mark and his team and said, hey, what if we build a partnership? You already have all the people and the systems. We've got the cash. Why don't we partner together, build a business around this thing, and you guys run it, and we will just keep injecting capital. Reluctantly, he eventually caved, and we did that deal. And now we average a little over $30,000 a month in passive income notes from that business alone. So those are some of the ones that would stand out the most if you were looking at this list.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Me and Jay sometimes communicate about the podcast. Next question, how we get. We're coordinating back here, and I literally just sent him a message that said, "Fuck, he is so right," because we do interview all these people. There are so many verticals that are out there that people are looking for capital. They're looking for business acumen. I think a lot of people overvalue capital and they undervalue people's business acumen and the ability to create a business. And I think there's a lot of ways to structure to become the investor, to be that the top food chain is not the business owner. It's really the investor in the business. And I think you've done a good job, and you're right. We do interview a lot of people. It's like a whole nother line of business, because that's how I look at it sometimes. I'm like, well, man, if I could have an operator that just runs the storage division, well, then I'd love to continue to do storage deals. You handle everything top to bottom. Same kind of premise. So that's really smart that you were able to identify that from doing your show and then creating those passive income revenue streams from there. That's really, really smart. Is there anything on the horizon for 2025? This is being recorded post-election. It'll come out post-election. A lot of people are bullish for the next 24 months, till about midterms. What's your thought process? Where do you think you're laying some capital? You got any new business ideas that you're looking at to put into your passive revenue streams?
Yeah, so this is unique to us, so probably not valuable for most people. But you look at where interest rates are and you figure out, are they going up? Or are they going down? I think everybody kind of tends to lean they're coming down a little bit, right? I don't know. I think maybe they would have come down a lot faster if maybe we wouldn't have seen the Trump win. So I'm looking at how do I take advantage of that. So our world is we own an insurance agency that focuses on the IBC space. So we're actually acquiring insurance agencies in that market and doing a roll up, because right now it's prime PE are paying the smallest multiples that they've paid in probably the last 10 years on those businesses, the service-based reoccurring revenue businesses. But as the interest rate continue to come down, I think there's going to be huge opportunities to sell those at higher multiples. I think that does cross lots of different business lines, right? So if you're in a business, you're having success, you're mastering it, and you want to think bigger, how do you scale it? How do you go buy, instead of just trying to continue to grow organically, which is good, how do you go buy growth, right? And take advantage of that opportunity. I know people that are doing that, in all different types. We've got a guy that's buying, 5 to 10, these auto repair locations all over the country. Every other month I'm talking to him. I just got 3 more. I just got 2 more. Right. And so, he's looking at the same math. I think there's opportunities for that. We've had a passive income mastermind event we did recently down in San Diego. You're looking at the math on oil and gas space. Obviously, the demand for that's going to continue to grow. Obviously, the election is going to help that world a lot more. I think we're going to see a lot more industrial opportunities, right? I think we're going to see a lot more, reshoring of businesses that have been offshored over the years. I think people who are interested in that space will see success too.
Yeah, all good stuff. What would you tell this type of person? And I think this is probably a common viewer and listener to this podcast. They own a good amount of real estate. They're full-time real estate investors, and they're kind of just tired of grinding deal through deal. They own they flip a few properties a year. They own some commercial real estate. They own some rental properties as well. And they're like, I get it. Like, I understand the concept. I need to, have my passive income be more than my monthly expenses. And I'm trying to get out, but I'm not 100% sure where. Is it something as, hey, well, why don't you try to, I don't know, set up a life insurance policy, and all your profits moving forward, you try to suck into that, take that back out. You'll still have working capital to improve. Is it switching asset classes? Is it like your mindset's completely wrong? Like any little bit of insight on that?
Yeah, well, hard to give great financial advice with 90 seconds worth of input, right? I don't want to be like the other bad talking head that dominates the airwaves. Nelson Nash had a great saying when people would ask him questions about, hey, tell me about IBC, and you got 10 minutes to do it. And he's like, man, I feel a little bit like a mosquito in a nudist colony. Like, I know what to do, but I don't know where to start, kind of thing. So I'll give you an opinion here. So one, I would say never leave your knowledge base, right? A lot of smarter people than me says diversification is diversifying your knowledge, and that's going to lead to bad results. But I would, my personality style, I can only speak from it, is to only say is how would I turn it into a business, right? So in any business, if you really want to be a big business owner, as Robert Kiyosaki would declare in the cash flow quadrant, is how do I install people that can actually run the business that requires less and less of me? So that's what I would be doing. I would be saying, and if you don't have the income needed to do that, then that just tells you need to scale. Right? That just tells you have bad systems or no systems at all. So I would be looking to scale it and install operators, because if I have that experience, I have that knowledge base. Now you may, do that in a syndicated way where now I start handing that off to skilled operators, and maybe I do become a passive LP, but I know, I can inspect what I expect from them. And so that's another way. But if I owned all the real estate and I want to get rid of it, I would just be figuring out how to turn it into a business, how to put the people in place where I can earn income off of their effort and incentivize them to continue to do it, help them scale it and grow it, just like any other business.
Yeah. And I think too many real estate investors treat it like a hobby, right? And unfortunately, and maybe that's where some of the premise of Jason's question comes from, just kind of knowing where he was going, is like, you start putting your money into an insurance policy, like that's a serious requirement that you got to do every year. And it's like, okay, I'm working to do this. Now I need to create the system to actively do this to get to this end result. Whereas most people are like, whatever, I'll just flip another house. I'll flip another house. And it's like, whatever. And they stay comfortable too long, versus continuing to challenge himself and get to that next level. We all have a responsibility to earn as much income as possible to protect our families, because it doesn't matter if Uncle Donnie's in, Uncle Joe, or it was Aunt Kamala, whoever you wanted to pick, doesn't matter. Things are going to continue to go up. Like, we're not going to stop it. And you need to continue to be able to navigate if there is hyperinflation, there is another war, there is a global shutdown or whatever they decide to do next time, right? Like, you need to be prepared. And if you're not continuing to earn money, and we all know money's a tool, right? But in the grand scheme of things, not enough people challenge themselves to get to that next level. And I think you've done a good job by outlining that of, hey, how do I become the investor and earning passive income?
So here's the thing I would say for your audience listening is that if you can build systems around the things you're doing, it will only make it better, right? So we built this process called the passive income operating system. It's literally taken us out of this active mentality, the rat race, right? That's commonly referred to it, to this wealth interface, to where we truly have passive income that's exceeding our monthly expenses. And we built a whole system that says, how do I do that? Because if you're working for it, it's on the active side. So how do I then get the cash flow from that and start building it on the passive side? And we built a page just for this podcast. If you go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/real estate reserve, you can get the free ebook. And we give so much content in that specific ebook for free. I mean, we used to charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars for every tool within it, but we're actually just giving it away for free now, because information is one of those things where we know people pay for implementation, not information. So from this point forward, we're just giving our information away. We want you to have it. If you need help doing it, sure, you can pay us and we can help you implement it. I think understanding there is a system, there is a process that you can implement in your life. And if you do it and you repeat it over and over and over again, you'll start to see the success that other successful businesses have. And this is just for you in your own investment life.
Yeah, no, it's we'll get that in the show notes so people can go check that out. You know, there is tons of free information. People do pay for the implementation. That's a smart one, because you can go to YouTube University, learn everything you need right now. You can download free ebooks. They're all out there. The question is, do you want to take that next step to get to that next level? And that could be going from dead broke to having some money. It can be going from having a W-2 to being able to retire. It could be, I have a business and I want to make it a bigger business. You decide what that next step is. So that's cool that you put all that information into a free ebook that we'll get into the show notes. This has been really, really informative. Enjoyed the conversation. It's always fun when people have similar viewpoints and similar goals. It makes the conversation really easy and really fun. So we appreciate you for that. What before we let you go, and obviously people know where to find you, but we'll let you do that again too. What's one book or podcast that's been like impactful to you, or that you think everybody should know about?
Yeah, I think if you're a business owner or an investor and you're building an investment business, you need to understand how to be a better business owner. And so I'll point you to one of my good friends, Sharon Srivatsa. He has a podcast called The Business School. And he is the current president of Real Brokerage. It's the fastest growing real estate brokerage company out there. And he is one of the most fascinating guys I've ever met. He breaks things down so simply. I tend to complicate the simple. He's the opposite. And he talks about business concepts. I was listening to him today talk about $1 million decisions. It's the decisions we make in life, the everyday decisions. And I think it's one of those podcasts that you would benefit from. If you're trying to think like a business owner, that would be one of my go-to.
Right on. We'll get that in the show notes too. So I'll add that to my Rolodex, because my politics podcasts are getting a little old now. Well, now that maybe, well, for me anyway, a certain individual one. So I'm excited for it. I'm like, all right, I don't need to listen to all the bad stuff for a little bit. Time to get back to some business development type stuff. So I'll add that in. With that being said, where's the best place people can find you? We know you set up a hyperlink, but they want to see you. They want to check out what you do on a day-to-day basis and learn more about what you guys do.
Yeah, so we actually have a community. It's almost 10,000 strong. If you go into your app store on your phone, you type in Wealth Without Wall Street, you can join for free. And man, the conversation is always only around building passive income that exceeds our monthly expenses. So I'd love for you to join us in there, and all the free resources and everything's there too. But also when you're in there, like you can literally DM me inside of that app, and I do respond. I don't have an AI bot responding on my behalf. So if you message me, definitely tell me that you heard me on this podcast, and I'll give you some love and point you to any resource that would help support you.
Right on. We appreciate that. Well, with that being said, guys, we get all that good information in the show notes, or go back and re-listen to it. And like we said, we told you Russ would come out here and drop pure fire. If you got any value out of this, please share it. It's the best compliment we can give him. And with that being said, we will catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.